Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tiravana Chari, Yamuna Tiravana Chari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, can you hear me? Is everything okay? Okay.
Yes, fine.
Okay, so then we start reading Bhagavatam. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 1, the activities of Maharaja Priyavrata, verse 16. Muktupi tavat bibhyat swadeham arabdam asnan abhimana shunya yatanubhutam pratiyata nidra kim tvanyadehaya gunan navrinukte. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The difference between a liberated and conditioned soul is that the conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas a liberated person knows that he is not the body, but a spirit, different from the body. Priyavrata might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body, but a spirit soul, disregards past activities, performs performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 3:9. Yagyartat karma no nyatra lokuyam karma bandana. If one performs activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality, the yagya, his work does not produce reactions, whereas karmis who act for themselves are bound by the reactions of their work. A liberated person, therefore, does not think about whatever he has ignorantly done in the past. Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruitive activities. As clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yugena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we will always be situated in the Brahma Bhuta, Srimad Bhagavatam 4:30-20, liberated state, free from reactions, and will not be obliged to accept another material body. Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna, Bhagavad Gita 4:9. After giving up the body, one who has acted in that way does not accept another material body, but instead goes back home, back to Godhead. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayati grim yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. In the Vedic philosophy, in the Indian philosophy rather, there are two main schools. One is called Astika. That means it is so, and it is so refers to the Vedas. So these are the theistic philosophers. And the other big group of philosophers is called Nastika, which means it is not so. And these are the atheists, different types of atheists, like the Buddhists, the Charvakas, and the Jains, and etc., different types. So the main difference between these two is that the first group accepts the Vedas as authority and bases its philosophy on the Vedas, and the second doesn't accept, rejects the Vedas. So in the Astika schools, they are called Saddarshanas, and they are usually presented in pairs. First is Nyaya, Vaisheshika, logic and atomic theory, and then Sankhya and Yoga, and then Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, or Karma Mimamsa and Vedanta. So we, the Gaudiyas, we belong to the Vedanta school. And inside the Vedanta school, there are another 6 schools. They're all Vedantic schools, but they have different Siddhanta. We have the impersonalists, the Adi Shankara, the Advaita Vedanta, and then we have the 4 Sampradayas, the Vaishnavas. All of them, they have slightly different Siddhanta. And we, nominally, we belong to the Madhva school, but still we have our own conclusion, which is called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So inside these Sadarshanas, there is the first one, the Nyaya, teaches the rules for logical thinking and logical presentation. It's funny that one of the requirements for having good health, according to Ayurveda, is that one should study Nyaya. Why? Because when we learn to think properly, logically, then we'll be peaceful. And if you have peaceful mind, then you'll be healthy. So maybe we should add this to our outreach. When we use Ayurveda to attract people, we should also teach them Nyaya, logic. So initially, all these schools, they were part of one study. They were like departments, different disciplines inside the big body of Vedic knowledge. But because Kali Yuga started to advance, and then they became fragmented, and they started to quarrel also. The representatives of these schools, they started quarreling among each other. But initially, they were one tradition, one school. They were just teaching different aspects of Vedic philosophy. So Nyaya is the logic is very interesting because, as I said, it teaches the rules of proper thinking and logical presentation. And before, when I was thinking about logic and about engaging in debate and argument, I always had this understanding that logic will teach you the techniques, how you overcome your opponent. It will equip you with different astras, different weapons, so that you can defeat the opposing party. But actually, when you study more Nyaya, it turns out it is more science about actually getting in touch with the people and presenting your point of view in a way that they can understand, and not only understand, but even possibly appreciate. So there are, when they study the reality, the Nyayas, the philosophers, the logicians, they have different categories that they divide reality, and one of them is called Avyayavas. This is called Panchanga Nyaya, or the fivefold logical presentation. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this in, I think in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who says that no statement can be accepted as true unless it has been presented, unless it has gone through these 5 levels of logical presentation. So they are, the first one is called pratigya, which means you state your thesis very shortly in one sentence. Then the second is called hetu, which means you give the reasons why your statement is true. Then the third one is udaharana, which means examples. You present examples illustrating why your statement is true. Then the fourth one is called upanaya. Upanaya means literally bring it closer for understanding. That means you anticipating the doubts and the objections of the opposition. You show how what you are saying already includes their position, but besides including them, you are able to present them a higher understanding of their own point of view. So in other words, you show that you understand what they're saying, you even appreciate what they're saying, but you present something higher. So in other words, you don't want to just to smash them, but rather you want to include them in your position. And then the last one is called Siddhanta. So basically you repeat the initial statement, you repeat your pratigya, but in a way that already includes some additional realizations. So regarding the fourth one, the Upanaya, we can give an example. Let's say we are debating with an impersonalist, not necessarily with a Mayavadi, because the Mayavadis are offenders. Let's say we are debating with Brahmavadi, with impersonalist who is innocently ignorant about Bhagavan. And then we could tell him, we can tell this person, we can present argument that we understand what you're saying, we agree, we even appreciate, up to the level of liberation, we have no problem with your philosophy. But you don't know that there is higher understanding of reality, which is Bhagavan. So in this sense, in this way, we can try to build a bridge between us and try to articulate, explain our philosophy clearly so that he can understand and appreciate. So why I'm making this a long introduction, because this chapter, Bhagavatam, I try to break into this five-fold logic, and I'll try now to present it to you, how this should sound. Of course, it's not a perfect presentation, but I hope it will be at least a little bit logical. And logic is important, by the way, because not everybody accepts pramana, shastra pramana. So people usually, if you say something and then you quote the Veda, most people will not be impressed. So therefore we have to sometimes use logic in our preaching work. So the pratigya, the thesis of this chapter will be: devotees cannot be absorbed in family affairs because they are liberated persons. See, this will be the initial statement, the thesis. And then the reasons: well, this is because they are fully satiated by the shade of the Lord's lotus feet, and thus their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members. By the way, all these 5 parts that I'm gonna present to you, they are taken from verses and purports from this first chapter. They're not purely speculative. So this is the hetu, the reason. And then example will be Priyavrata himself, who although householder, he maintained his purity, his commitment to the process of Krishna consciousness, and then he was able to, at the end, go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the third part, the Udaharana. And then the fourth, Upanaya. Following the orders of his superiors, Priyavrata accepted family life, but this did not mean that he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. And then the Siddhanta, the conclusion: without their connection to the Lord, Maharaja Priyavrata considered hellish the opulences he had achieved by dint of fruitive activities and mystic power, whether in the lower or heavenly planetary systems or in human society. So in the Siddhanta, we are practically saying the same thing as in the Pratigya, in the initial statement. The devotees cannot be absorbed in family affairs because they are liberated persons. So this discussion begins by a question, as usually in Bhagavatam, question that actually has 2 parts. The first part is: how is it possible that a self-realized person enters in family life, which is the main cause for material bondage? a devotee actually has no attraction for household life, Srila Prabhupada writes. But surprisingly, King Priyavrata enjoyed household life very much. So this is the first aspect of this question. And then the second, how was it possible for a person like King Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children, and home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness? So both these doubts, both these questions, they share something in common. Well, first of all, let us try to see how a materialist or materialistic devotee will see these two questions, two doubts. Well, first of all, how is it possible that a self-realized person enters in family life? Well, a materialistic person would say, well, that proves that he was not advanced devotee at all. Otherwise, why would he enter Grihastha life? We see such and such devotee. This is we're going a little further with this argument, materialistic argument. We see that such and such devotee performed such and such improper activities. Okay, then a materialistic person would say, well, this proves that he hasn't been devotee. Never, ever. And then the second doubt, well, how is it possible that King Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children, and home, achieved the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness? Well, a materialist will say, well, it shows that he did not actually achieve anything. Because it's not possible. You are helplessly entangled. How can you achieve these high levels of Krishna consciousness? But actually, what actually happens here, what actually the Acharyas explain, is that first of all, Maharaja Priyavrata was fully qualified. He was actually qualified to remain Naishtiki Brahmachari, but he accepted family life because of the orders of superiors, of the superior authority. And in one purport, one commentary to this section, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that, what does he say? He says that devotee, this example of Priyavrata shows that sometimes the devotee always should follow authority, always, even when the advice, the order of the authority goes seemingly against bhakti. Even then he should follow. So Priyavrata Maharaj was fully qualified. He entered family life not because he wanted to enjoy it, but because he was asked to do so by superior authority, by the most bona fide authority possible, by Lord Brahma himself, accompanied by the personified Vedas, in the case he needed them, to quote, to convince Priyavrata. And then the second doubt, how is it possible for a person like King Priyavrata, who was so attached, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection? It was possible basically because of the mercy of the Lord, because of the blessings of the authorities, because he was able to maintain his high level of Krishna consciousness inside the household life. And I think Sridhar Swami, later on, we will quote this, but anyway, Sridhar Swami, he says that Priyavrata's material attachments were actually only a shadow of material attachment. It was not the real thing. He was not really attached. He was just performing his duties. And the proof is that he was able to renounce everything and go back home, back to Godhead. And even if there was some material attachment, still he was successful at the end. So Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the purport commentaries to this section, therefore, if one is completely trained in the principles of brahmacharya, he generally does not enter household life. He is then called a Naishtika Brahmachari, which indicates total. Srila Prabhupada said that first class Brahmachari makes first class Grihastha. But this is in odds with our sometimes neophyte understanding that first class Brahmachari is Naishtiki Brahmachari. And then the second class Brahmachari is Upakurvana Brahmachari. Actually, there are two types of first class Brahmacharis. One is called Naishtika and the other one is Upakurvana Brahmachari. First one never gets married, second gets married. But they are both first class Brahmacharis. Why? Because they have undergone the same training, they have studied the same knowledge, and they're, we can say, equally qualified. There is only one difference, though. The difference is that the first type, the Naishtiki Brahmachari, he has the realization. He has acquired the realization maybe from previous life or from this life. He has acquired the realization just by hearing from authority. This is the first class intelligence, when you hear and then you understand, you accept, and then you realize the knowledge. The second class intelligence is that you hear, you accept, you understand, you meditate, you contemplate. But in order to acquire the realization, you have to go through the process. This is second class intelligence. But they're both respected, both positions are respected. Because the important thing is the realization, whether you get it now or in 25 years, in the when we consider the eternality that we are here, Nitya Bhadas, okay, we are since time immemorial in this material world. So 25, 30 years is not a long period at all. So the important thing is the realization. And what is this realization that the Naishtiki Brahmachari has acquired and the Upakurvana Brahmachari has to acquire by going through the process of Grihastha life? The realization is that it is not worth it, the endeavor, that no matter, even if you get a fabulous wife or beautiful children, obedient, and everything is perfect, still at the end of the day, chanting Hare Krishna is better, association with devotees is better, hearing Bhagavatam is better. Similar to the realization of Maharaja Yati, who after enjoying for many, many hundreds, thousands of years, at the end of his enjoyment, he was very happy because he said, now I am satisfied, I'm happy because I understood there is no happiness. There is no real happiness in the material world. Although he was one of the most pious personalities, and if you're pious, you enjoy piously. Still, although he had it all, he was at the end peacefully able to move on in his spiritual life. And this happens when we are following the rules, because even if you want to enjoy, there are rules that you have to follow, and these are the rules of Krishna. And then you get the best possible result. Everything works nice for you, as far as possible. Of course, in the material world, it will never be perfect. That's why it's the material world. But then you get all these nice facilities, nice relationship, family life works fine, and still you see, I'm still not happy. I'm still not satisfied. In the impious scenario, it is harder to get to this realization, because then you don't achieve actually this good situation. You don't get the good facilities. You don't have good relationships. Your marriage breaks. You get divorced one time, second time, third time. Usually by the third or fourth marriage, you kind of make it work, because you got so much experience now. But the problem is that not necessarily you get this realization. You always think, oh, I didn't do it proper, or my partner was not good. So there is happiness actually. Here I just couldn't get it this time, but I'll try again and I'll improve and I'll finally attain it. So this is the problem when we are in pious. So the Naishtiki brahmachari has this realization. Dupa Kurbana brahmachari has to get it through the experience, practical experience in his family life, where he can see firsthand that every point that Bhagavatam makes about this dynamics is absolutely true. There is no one point that is missing. There is nothing that is overstated or exaggerated. Everything is completely true. So therefore, the brahmachari training is so important because in the brahmachari ashram, what actually happens is that the boys are trained to become good grihastas. Therefore, Prabhupada says, first-class brahmachari makes first-class grihasta. And of course, some will remain brahmacharis, but there'll be small minority. Some will take sannyas, but most of them will actually get married. And in the brahmachari ashram, the brahmacharis are trained to be self-controlled, to be to work under authority. This is extremely important. Probably this is the most important, because by working under authority, then you acquire all these other qualities, like self-control, cleanliness, very important. To be always active. In other words, not to be lazy. All these qualities are to be humble, to be expert in what you're doing. All these qualities are extremely helpful in the Grihastha ashram. Because, for example, self-control. If you're not self-controlled, if the wife is able just to control the husband just by moving her eyebrows, then she will lose respect to him very quickly. And all human relationships are based on respect. This is the basis. If you don't have this foundation, you cannot have meaningful relationships. And then to working under authority. This is what brahmacharis learn in the brahmacharya ashram. They do what they are told to do. They live where they are told to. They work under authority, under the temple commander. So sometimes the brahmacharis think, well, if I become grihastha, then I can have my own arrangement. Then I don't have to listen anymore. But the problem is that grihastha means he's married to a wife. He's not one-man show. Then instead of the temple commander telling you what to do, then the wife will tell you. So, and if you know that you have to work under authority by your previous training, then you'll take it very easily, because you know that everybody works under authority. This is at least the civilized people do that. This is one of the arguments that Brahma will give later on to Priyavrata Maharaj. He will say, the first argument he'll make is that, look, everybody works under authority. Don't be resentful. Don't be jealous to the order of the Lord. I also work under authority. Everybody, you also. So don't be upset. Sometimes you have to just follow the authority, although you don't like to. But it's for your ultimate good, because by pleasing authority, you please Krishna, and then everybody's pleased. So then all these qualities, also being clean. Women don't like dirty men, both internally and externally. Being always active. Women don't like lazy people. Therefore, sometimes the Prabhus, they like to quote Dharma Shastras, Manu, And the wife should follow the husband. But how do you follow someone who doesn't go anywhere? You know, you follow someone who is moving, and preferably he should be moving in a positive direction towards Krishna. So then you can follow. But if the man is not properly trained, he won't move. He'll be in Maya. So then how you follow this? So then all these problems with independent women, feminism, etc., they start to appear. And the core problem is unqualified men. So therefore, the brahmacharya ashram is meant to provide good stock of qualified men so that the grihastha scene can work and operate smoothly. And this is for the benefit of the whole human society. And then Shukadeva Goswami accepted both of King Parikshit's suggestions in the beginning of this chapter, that one who advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot once again embrace materialistic life because he's already advanced, he has higher taste. And one who is fully absorbed in materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage. But basically, this doesn't apply to Maharaja Priyavrata. So the statements are true, but the application is wrong. The materialistic application is wrong. So it's interesting. Okay, we mentioned that Brahma, when he arrived and he tried to convince Priyavrata, the first thing he said was that everybody should follow authority. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm repeating probably I'm repeating what you have heard already in previous lectures by giving this kind of overview of this chapter. But I'd like to read something from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, describing the reason why Brahma, when he came down, he smiled to Priyavrata Maharaj. So Brahma had a merciful glance, and then he was smiling. And the reason was, Brahma was thinking, I have interrupted his bhakti, jnana, and vairagya. So Brahma understands what's going on. He's fully aware. But even in household life, may his bhakti increase. So by the blessing of the authority, then we'll be successful. Therefore, sometimes the devotees say, count your blessings. Then he looked at his grandson with a smile. And he thought, to refuse the kingdom is your stubbornness. I will make you rule the kingdom. That is my stubbornness. I will see whose stubbornness will prevail. So therefore he was smiling. But ultimately it was beneficial for everybody. So it was not like the authority comes and manipulates you and try to exploit you, and the result is bad for negative for everyone. No, when the advanced devotees, they actually do all these things, but they do it in proper way. And we can see that at the end, when Priyavrata agreed, everybody was pleased. Narada Muni was also present there. He was not resentful, he was not jealous, he was not dissatisfied. Everybody was satisfied. And this is very important, that always we should try to have win-win outcome of as far as possible. Of course, in the material world, there will always be somebody who is dissatisfied. But as far as possible, we should try to please as much as possible, as wider as possible range of devotees, especially the senior devotees. They should be pleased. There should be win-win, not one is pleased and the rest are dissatisfied. This will create problems in future. This principle is very important. For example, Okay, because here we had in one side we had the instruction of Narada Muni, right? He wanted Priyavrata to remain brahmachari, and then on the other side we have Swambhuva Manu and Brahma himself, who want the opposite. So how do you reconcile this so that everybody's happy at the end? Well, that's what we are talking here. This is the Vedic system. And how do you reconcile it? To solve such dilemmas, Srila Prabhupada writes, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a very clear conception of intelligence. So what is this conception? Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarkam Upayunjataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhi Yuktam Vairagam Uchite. You accept the so-called material activities, but you do them with proper consciousness. And then everybody will be happy. You will remain, in a sense, brahmachari, and at the same time you will manage the universe, the kingdom. And so in this way, both suggestions are correct. It's not that Narada Muni is wrong or Brahma is right or other way around. No, they're both right. This is very important when we study the Vedas also. Sometimes we see contradictions, but they're not contradictions, actually. It is just our imperfect understanding. Or sometimes we see that Srila Prabhupada says one thing, Jiva Goswami says something else. Vishwanath Chakravarti says something different. That's not true. They're all saying the same thing. It just takes a little bit more maturity to understand how everything falls in place, and there is no contradiction. Usually, if you notice, the materialists always try to prove that there is contradiction, especially their favorite activity is to prove that there is contradiction in the scriptures, in the Vedas. Why? Because by showing that there is a contradiction, first of all, they feel superior. You see, I'm intelligent, I'm smart, I can see through all this illusion, and all these naive, sentimental people, they just follow their belief system blindly. But I can see, I'm not blind, I'm intelligent. So this is one thing. Second is, by proving, so-called proving, that there is contradiction in Shastra, that means you don't have to follow. It is inconsistent. And if you don't have to follow this so-called Shastra, then you follow your mind. You create your own Shastra. You create the law and you follow it. So it's very important, this interaction between Brahma and Priyavrata, and it's very, very instructive. Okay. So I guess we have to slowly come to an end. So first in this verses 11 to 15, Brahma has established that everybody should follow authority. And in the next 4 verses, 16 to 19, Brahma deals with the another doubt that Priyavrata has. Brahma explains that even when he follows the authority, this will not harm his Krishna consciousness. This is a great concern. We remember similar concern from Shukadeva Goswami. He didn't want to come out of the womb because he was afraid that he will be in Maya. So Krishna reassured him, and only then he came out of the womb. Okay, and then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, enjoy the objects given especially by your master. This is what Brahma tells Priyavrata. Enjoy the objects given especially by your master. Enjoyment arising from karma is the cause of bondage, but not enjoyment given by the Lord. So there are 2 types of enjoyments. Then later, hand over the kingdom to your son, go to the forest, and remain there, worshipping the Lord. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. If somebody has some comment or question.
Hi Krishna, I could say something.
Hi,
I just sorry. I really appreciated this class. Also, it's seeming like you are in New York. Is that accurate?
Yeah, New York, yes.
Okay.
Brooklyn.
So I think that's really awesome, especially when you were talking about kind of how I think you're speaking more on the lines of preaching, but when we're connecting with people, we're going out and we're talking to people about the philosophy, how we don't necessarily want to just smash people. I mean, we want to show that there's something higher. So it's nice you you don't just consider everyone that is like maybe in personal as a Maya body. You mentioned the Brahma bodies, which is really a good thing. Also, most people are just kind of got like come to a certain point, but we just don't know that there's something higher. So it's nice to make people feel comfortable, like, hey, you're not wrong, but hey, keep going. So I think it's really awesome that you're in New York and you can be someone who can connect with people on this way, because being with following around a lot of Sankirtan devotees, not everybody has this mindset, so it's quite unique, and I just really appreciated that. So yeah, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Well, thank you very much. Yes, there is another. Dasi Prema Prabhu wants to say something, right?
Hare, Hare Krishna, Guru.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Nice to hear from you. See you again. Yeah, I was wondering this point you were making about the the realization of like the first class realization, second class realization, and how the Naistika, he doesn't enter into Grihastha ashram because he has that realization. So it seems like nowadays many like men are, devotee men are staying single, and maybe because there's some like fear of kind of getting into that, having that responsibility. But maybe in the God, maybe like they're covering it up as, oh yeah, I've actually just realized that, it's just going to be very
troublesome.
Troublesome, entangling. So how do you know, like, how do you differentiate between those two? It's like, does that make sense? Between
very good question. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, one is the brahmachari. Doesn't matter whether he's Naishtiki or Upakurvana brahmachari, he's proper brahmachari, getting trained, going through the process. Other one is just a bachelor. You just basically he's a grihasta, but he's actually not qualified to have wife. Why he's not qualified? Because he's too selfish, too self-centered. Because for the Upakurvana brahmachari, grihasta is the next stage. So grihastas are more advanced than the brahmacharis in this sense. So why? Because the brahmacharis, they just take care of themselves. They are happy if they make it together, so that their own they can manage their own spiritual life, material life, whatever. But they're not supposed to have material life. But the grihasta has to take responsibility for others as well. So this is more advanced position. So how to discriminate between these two? You mean what are the symptoms?
Maybe that's a good way to put it.
one symptom I have seen over the years is that this type of devotees, they cannot work under authority. They want to be independent from authority, from temple authorities. But at the same time, they don't take responsibility, because everybody should work under authority. They try to be independent, but they have to pay a price in future for this, because usually they have problems also accepting a guru, working under guru. That's another problem for them. So the general symptom is independence, desire for just self-centered, egoistic approach to life, which will backfire, because it's not the proper position of the soul. Therefore, we have Varna Shankara, and we have also Ashrama Shankara. We have in between ashrams, people who are nowhere, and that's not to be encouraged, I think. Anyway, it's the whole topic for discussion, but in general, it's not something that is to be encouraged. Rather, we should try to encourage the devotees to take proper position so that they can get purified and advance in Krishna consciousness, basically. So
Okay.
not all unmarried boys are brahmacharis.
Jai, thank you, Guru.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
I have a question for you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
We're supposed to work under authority, yet everybody is very keen in criticizing the authority, finding fault authority. So should we always see the authority as representing Krishna and forget about our, throw nyaya out the window? Should we consider that the person that was put in a position of authority is just as fallible as us, but it was engaged by the Supreme Lord, and therefore, because of that, we have to follow, even though realizing that it's a fallible person like everybody else? Should we just reject authority on the basis that we got the realization that comes from a higher plane, that we are a better judge of what we're supposed to do? There are so many options. So how do you reconcile? How do you put it together? What's the package that we should choose?
Wow, Prabhu, this is really complicated question. Definitely, we know from Bhagavad Gita, from Prabhupada's purports, this famous verse 434. Prabhupada says that in this verse, both absurd inquiries, I think, and blind following are condemned. So we shouldn't be blind followers. We should follow authorities who follow their own authorities. Therefore, as we mentioned, the wife is supposed to follow the husband, but the husband is supposed to follow Krishna. So it goes this way. This is the proper way. So we have to respect the position of the authority always. We see the example of Sanatana Goswami standing up, and all the Brahmanas standing up to receive the Mohammedan ruler of Bengal when he entered the room, because he occupies the position of an authority, although he's a Yavana. So there should be this respect for the office. The office holder is to be respected because he has been put there by Krishna At the same time, it is our own responsibility to choose wisely our authorities and to choose such authorities by which we are inspired in Krishna consciousness, and not to use the inevitable shortcomings of the authorities in Kali Yuga as an excuse not to follow. Okay, so maybe this authority is not inspiring for you. Maybe he has some problems, but he cannot say that all authorities have problems. It's, I think, our own responsibility to put ourselves in a proper environment where we are inspired by our authorities. Not just follow blindly or not follow at all. Avoid these two extremes. Is this okay, Prabhu?
I couldn't answer it, so yes, I will accept your authority in that respect.
Okay. Okay, there's somebody else. Mataji Taraka wants to say something.
Yes, Mataji Taraka.
Taraka Dasa. Okay, Taraka Prabhu. Excuse me.
I thank you for your class. Yeah, with regards to Sarvatma's question, Srila Prabhupada addressed this issue on a number of occasions. His primary focus seemed to be, first of all, that it's important that we cooperate. The chain of command in ISKCON, he expected his disciples to follow. He would explain that disciple means discipline. And he acknowledged that sometimes authorities may be off. Sometimes they may be completely off the rails. They may be acting improperly. But in spite of that, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to remain submissive to our authorities and to cooperate with them. And he explained that if we fail to do that, then everything becomes, he said, topsy-turvy. So in order to maintain the order and for service to go on uninterruptedly, he felt it was very important that the devotees remain always submissive and cooperative with their authorities. And there is one particular conversation in which he was explaining this, and the context was that devotees were inquiring because a particular ISKCON leader had gotten seriously off track. Terrible things were going on. Regulative principles were being violated. And so, this was a leader who was just completely off track. It was very, very serious. Nonetheless, Srila Prabhupada still wanted us to cooperate, which was a surprise to many devotees. Some felt that it was justifiable under the circumstances to refuse to cooperate with this authority, but that was not Srila Prabhupada's position. He appreciated the devotees who remained cooperative. He was, however, disappointed with the senior-most devotees, whom he expected to have recognized the problem when it developed and then to take some action. He did not want devotees in general to have to make judgments about their authorities, but felt that was a duty, particularly for the very senior devotees. He repeated this again and again, that he said, you have not to judge. You cannot judge your authorities. And practically I witnessed on numerous occasions that he was completely intolerant of devotees who became judgmental about their authorities, even when the authority was absolutely wrong. When a subordinate, particularly a junior, pointed that out to Srila Prabhupada, he would not hear it. He would refuse to hear it. And he would chastise the individual very severely. He would not tolerate juniors, particularly, becoming judgmental or finding fault in a senior, even when the senior was clearly wrong. Always he wanted that a mood of cooperation prevail. And the etiquette of seniors being respected by juniors was something that Srila Prabhupada strictly enforced. Their lordships have appeared, so I have to shut up. Thank you again, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Okay.
Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Nama Om Vishnu Krishnaya Bhutare Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Ramane. Om.